Hi, Ed Bixby here from the Global Green Burial Alliance with my co-host Gretchen Spletzer, and this is Spotlight Now.
Hi, everybody. Today we are here with Bob Jenkins, and he is the founder and owner of Let Your Love Grow. And I'm very excited to have him here today. I met Bob in Missouri at the Missouri Cemetery Convention and listened to his presentation about the wonderful product, Let Your Love Grow, which is a product that you mix with cremated remains so that you can basically feed a superfood with those cremains to your plants and make it safe to scatter or to return them back to the earth. So welcome, Bob, to our
Thank you.
forum. I'm happy to have you today.
Thank you. Nice to be with you both.
So I know that this whole story started with the death of your little dog, which really touched my heart when I heard it because I'm a total dog lover, and my dog had passed shortly before that presentation, so I relate to the pain of that for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. You know, my wife and I don't have any children, and we had a little dachshund. And one morning, she would always get up when I get up, and I had to fly out. I was with the National Casket Company at the time, and I had to fly out real early one morning. And I opened the door, let her out to do her thing, and I was going to do my thing, come back and open the door. For some reason, I opened the door and stood there, and a coyote attacked her immediately in our front yard. And I ran out and grabbed her and scared the coyote off. And she lived for about 18 months after that, but she was only a 5-pound dachshund. She was very, very tiny. And she died. And when she died, I was on the road again, and my wife had to make the decision, you know, to let her go. And she's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I want to have her cremated." And here I am, an embalmer, funeral director. And she's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know, we don't know what we're going to do and all that." So we kept her cremated remains for a couple of years. And then we both like to garden. So we started trying to find out how can we create something out of our cremated remains that's sustainable and beautiful and gives back to the earth. So we started out with an environmental engineer. He helped us and led us to a composting company that led us to a laboratory that led us to all these different things. And it took us a couple of years. And our company is Verde Products, Inc. And our first product and our brand is Let Your Love Grow. So this is our pet products over here. But it's what Let Your Love Grow does, whether human or animal, is it jumpstarts Mother Nature that the cremation process stops. The cremation process removes all moisture and bacteria from the bone, and the bone becomes sterilized. And even though we call them ashes, they're 100% bone. So what we do is we reintroduce moisture and bacteria so Mother Nature can just keep moving forward and continue the flow of energy. So when the cremation ash is mixed with our product, it can be used in a potted plant, in the earth, it can be scattered. We don't recommend scattering for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have to have permission to scatter on somebody else's property, but also the product has to be in touch with the cremated remains for some time to break down the elements, because our product is 100% organic, so there's no chemicals. And if you scatter too soon, rainwater or a watering system will actually separate the product and the material. I'm sorry, the cremated remains and the product, and it really reduces the efficacy. Then you have cremated remains left laying on top of the ground. So
yeah, and I saw on your website there's some step-by-step instructions, and I saw that you mix it together and let it sit for a little while,
yeah,
so that it can blend together, and then it's good to go. So that's good. Your website's really easy to read and
thank
great,
you.
really
Now, if you're
informative.
burying or planting, that can be done immediately after mixing. But if the scattering, it takes at least 90 days to 120 days for the bacteria to start breaking down the calcium to release the good nutrients within the bone.
That's really
It's
good.
really something else.
Go ahead, Ed. Sorry about
No,
that.
no, that's no problem. So Bob, you know, I've known you for quite a few years, and I know the product has been around for actually quite a while now. How have you been received? Obviously, it's been received well. Tell us a little bit about that. As far as, you know, are you dealing mainly with families, or do you deal with the funeral industry with your product? How does that typically go?
Well, It's a mix of it all. We started out in the pet market because it was kind of the low-hanging fruit, and the pet industry, the death care industry, isn't as entrenched in culture as the human industry. So we started working with pet crematories, and then we found a niche that no one really had, and that was when pet crematories, when they cremate communal, where families don't want the pet back, that crematory is responsible to get rid of all that bone. And we had pet crematories that were going through a ton of bone a month. I mean, by actual weight, that's not just a figure of speech. They literally had a ton of bone a month they had to get rid of. So we made a bulk product for that market, and we had a very unique niche and started growing quite rapidly in the pet industry for all the pet crematories that, you know, they either had to take it to a landfill or bury it. And so a landfill, they had to pay to go to that. A lot of the places I helped, we find cemeteries, they could scatter this massive amount after it would sit for 6 to 8 months. And it was organic matter. And then we started working with them to retail to their pet family, pet parents. But our online business during COVID, our online business to the consumer has exploded. And because it's interesting on the human side, there's a large amount of people that have cremated remains at home because the funeral home doesn't really give them guidance on what to do with the ashes. They'll say, did you want to keep them? Well, we don't know. And the funeral director is like, okay, well, then, you know, you can take them home. They may be in an urn. They may be in a basic return urn. We don't know, but they're calling us. So we've had families that we've worked with that have had cremated remains for over 40 years. And
Oh,
now
wow.
they're ready to do something. And so we're just now starting to grow in the funeral industry, mostly on the cemetery side. A lot of the conservation burial grounds are starting to use our product. So our market has really been a mix. We are proud to say we're selling product now in 5 countries on 3 different continents. So, and most of the growth in those countries have come through the government. The government has reached out to us because they're either run out of burial space or they've seen the damage of scattering ashes openly on top of the ground where it's killed the bushes and the grass and the plant.
Yeah, and it's a great product for. I know when I was at the GBC, of international country had reached out. They wanted to start a cremains cemetery that wasn't going to handle bodies, but I hadn't know I'd referred your product to them because they were looking for how to handle that. And you know, a lot of people they really don't know how to handle those cremains.
They don't.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, Ed, I know you have some background in the industry, as I do too, but so many times in funeral industry, things are put out there with a good intent, but there's not the long-term impact understanding of what it does. I mean, again, I'm an embalmer funeral director. I've worked for 2 national casket companies. I worked for a national vault company. I sold urns. I sold it all, you know, and I'm almost like a reformed smoker because you know, we don't need all that stuff now. But all their intent was for the protection of the body, which was, you know, a good concept. But the reality of it is, that land is now locked up forever and ever, and it can't be reused because those graves are full. Well, we started to develop products for countries. How it really came to our attention was in New Zealand. We have a distributor in New Zealand, and we met with the government while we were down there. And we have a distributor. We were down there visiting. There was an article that came out in the Auckland News that they were not going to allow scattering of cremated remains anymore in the cemetery. And the government, the New Zealand government, runs 95% of the cemeteries. And they said it's turning up the toes of our roses. So we were fortunate enough to get a meeting with them before we left, and ended up going back and spending 3 weeks with them and helping them understand, you know, the process of how to scatter properly and get it back into the environment and make it safe. But their big concern was they are so limited in burial and cremation space that they thought, what are we going to do? How are we going to start reusing these graves? And so we were teaching them with our product of all the steps they could take to move forward and reuse that land over and over. Right now, we have a customer, the Washington National Cathedral started a cremation garden. did some research, found out about us. I actually got to sit on the design committee, and they created this burial or cremation garden that's 1,000 graves. And when they get the grave 999, they can go back to grave 1 and start burying again using our product, because that area will never fill. They'll always be able to bury there for eternity by using our product with cremation ash.
And they'll be able to keep things growing there because, you know, even though people might have chosen a unsustainable cremation, they're doing they're sequestering carbon or setting that off by planting a tree or shrubbery or flowers or feeding the soil with microorganisms and so that worms and everything can live. Yeah, that's really good.
Absolutely.
That's our whole concept, is to keep continuing the flow of life. I mean, putting the body in a casket and embalming it stops that flow. Cremation actually stops that flow. And by introducing the remains back to our product, that flow keeps going. Ed, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think what is really, interesting about this and what the viewers need to know is that, like you had mentioned earlier, all of those cremains that exist within, the United States that haven't found that final home yet. And what a special way to celebrate and memorialize someone, but to bring them back to nature, back to life, back to, the circle of life by introducing their remains to the soil and becoming an active part of the world again in many ways. So the opportunities are absolutely endless. Certainly the carbon footprint of the cremation itself, was a negative, but the carbon offset of what your product can bring, can be a carbon positive, help erase. What's I find really interesting, Bob, and I know we'll touch on this in a future forum that's coming up, but you had mentioned you're working on a new initiative that I think that our viewers would really, I think maybe we need a little teaser, to bring them up to speed as to what is going to come very shortly. We talked a little bit about, let's say, for instance, terramation or natural organic reduction, as people like to call it. But if you don't mind mentioning a few little things about what you guys have in the works, Bob, and then we can keep people hanging until we get them to the forum.
Yeah. So in all of our studies, we actually studied body decomposition, cremated remains decomposition. And the side effect of everything we did, we realized we advanced decomposition. So then I thought, well, what could we do to advance decomposition, but put it in a controlled environment? So we created a company. It's a UK-based company. It's part of us and part of the Faunus Group in the UK. It's called Precision Organic Dispersal. And it's an above ground modular system that can be placed in funeral homes or cemeteries. When a family cares to or chooses to do body composting, that funeral home or cemetery can offer that right there in their community, and it's powered by solar and rainwater. We're really proud of it. We're going to be rolling it out this year in the U.S. So stay tuned.
Truly green
Wow.
composting. It's no electricity.
Yeah.
No
Absolutely.
heating element.
That
That's
is
great.
something
Yeah.
else.
And one of the questions up, if it doesn't have electricity, or even if it does have electricity, what if the power goes out? By the fact it has solar panels, that will run for 2 or 3 days without any power on its own. So it's really a cool system.
Yeah, that is. A lot of people, I think,
Wow.
are going to be interested in that. And I know we talked a little bit before this interview too. We're going to be talking a lot about the science of body decomposition, which I know we get a lot of questions about. And I know that you have so much history and research in that area. So I'm really excited to talk to you and ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, you can send us notes, we'll help you out. If we don't know the answer, we'll do our best to find somebody that can get the answer for you.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you this, Bob, we truly appreciate the fact that you were able to come on here today and do a little spotlight on what you've been doing for many years. And we're really excited to speak to you in the future about, this new endeavor. It's going to be something that's going to change the industry in many ways. There's no doubt in my mind. But we certainly appreciate you being here. And from the Global Green Burial Alliance, I thank you and look forward to that conversation in the future.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Grit.
Yes, and I just want to tell everybody out there who's not a funeral provider that Let Your Love Grow is the best product if you have cremains to, you know, that you want to plant a tree with or not have on your shelf anymore, but you really don't know how to handle them, because his website has the instructions on how to do that. His product is wonderful and it's green and you can do it all by yourself and it's not that expensive, and you can make sure that, you know, you're doing the right thing, because I know people are a little unsure out there. So this is very helpful.
Yep.
And we're going to have Bob back again in a month or two for a full hour forum. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next
Thank you.
time. Bye.
Bye-bye.